Across time, when you listen to your viewers, things change. The questions that you get sent in change because one of the things we prided ourselves on most was listening to our viewers, talking about what all of you wanted to talk about. Those questions change across time because people change. We spanned generations. We went from one generation to the next. We had moms and dads come on with their teens saying, "Yeah, I can't talk when I come home from school because Dr. Phil's on, so I have to go have a snack till Dr. Phil's off." And then 10 years later, here they are, and they're coming on and saying they have children now. 15 years later, they're coming on saying, "We have children now," and their children are sitting there rolling their eyes. "We can't talk now because Dr. Phil's on." And we laugh about that, but I'm proud of the fact that we've actually spanned a generation across time. But the questions changed. And you have to think about this. When we started in 2002, people weren't emailing all the time. There weren't any social media platforms. There weren't any smartphones. But then around 08, 09, when that happened, then the world really changed. And it really changed for young people because in my view, they stopped living their lives and started watching people live their lives and comparing themselves to those people living their lives. So we had to change with that. The words cyber and bullying had never been used in the same sentence before because there was no such thing as cyberbullying, but all of a sudden there was. And so now we had kids that would not just get bullied at school, but it would follow them home, or they would change schools and it would follow them to the next school. They couldn't escape it. So I had to adapt, and my staff had to adapt, and we had to start looking at different kinds of psychosocial research. And I was asked to come testify before Congress with the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act when they were saying, what do we do about this? Do we need to dedicate funds to deal with cyberbullies? How do we handle this? There were educators there saying, well, this happens off campus, so it's not our problem. It's not our job. Yes, it is. You're with these kids 40% of their waking hours, and these relationships are formed at school. They just continue at home. So you are part of the equation. You do need to make this a part of the curriculum. So we were fighting these battles on the air. We were fighting these battles on the internet. We were fighting these battles on Capitol Hill. I was writing columns about it. I was giving interviews about it. I was testifying about it on Capitol Hill. So we had to start changing what we were doing. And as time went on, and I hit 18, 19, 20 years, we started seeing new challenges arise, social challenges. It wasn't just marriage and family anymore, but things were invading the family boundaries. We were starting to see activists pushing agendas in school. We started seeing kids getting all of their information on TikTok, for God's sakes. There are portions of the population that get 100% of their news on TikTok. Problem with that is it has no vetting. A lot of those people have an agenda. They're selling something. They're not reporting the news. They're not helping teach kids how to think. They're telling them what to think. It's the old parable, teach a man to fish, he'll eat the rest of his life. Give him some fish, he eats tonight. I reverse that. It actually says, give a man some fish, he'll eat tonight. Teach him to fish, he'll eat the rest of his life. And that's the thing about critical thinking. If you teach someone how to reason, how to think, how to really be deductive in their thinking, then they can generalize that to every situation. If you just tell them what to think, even if you're right, even if you're accurate, you need to teach them how to think for themselves. And when we started building the Dr. Phil primetime set here in Texas, we did a time-lapse camera there so you can see it being built up. So it's fun to kind of watch one where they're tearing it down and then watch the next one where it's going back up. So take a look at these time-lapse cameras, history coming down and history being built back up. And finally, on what was the date that we launched? It was April 2nd, right? We didn't want to go on April Fool's Day. I mean, that was bad karma, right? So we didn't want to do that. So we waited until Tuesday, April 2nd, and then we floated this boat with a very special ribbon cutting. And you're going to recognize some people at this ribbon cutting. First, you're going to see that I couldn't find the ribbon to cut because it had a bunch of flowers and greenery all around it. And I had some big scissors, and I was afraid of cutting somebody's fingers off. But you're going to see some major players there because this is really, they call this DrPhil's network, but it's really DrPhil and Friends. Steve is part of the Merritt Street family. And look, you all know Steve is hilarious. He's a very funny guy, very talented guy. When you think about Steve, you think about Family Feud, you think about all the different things that he's done on the comedy side, his stand-up, Kings of Comedy, one of the original things that he broke out on, his daytime show. But Steve is also a very deep individual, very principled individual. I invited him to join this Merritt Street family some time ago, and he actually made a comment about that recently. I want to share that with you. It'll give you some insight into Steve. Now, you got to understand, we've been friends a long time, so he calls me Philly. He didn't call me Dr. Phil, he calls me Philly. But, I mean, we've vacationed together. We're just really good friends. Everybody always thought we were competitors because he had a daytime show and I had a daytime show. And in Hollywood, you're supposed to compete and all that sort of stuff. But that was not our relationship. Our wives are best friends. He and I are best friends. We go on vacations together and dinner together. We've been in each other's homes. It's just, he calls me Philly. What can I tell you? Here, take a look.
Philly calls me. You know his track record. You know what he does. I know you didn't need no money. That was cool. I was relaxed right there. Because this ain't a dude that, Philly, we don't have a relationship where, you know how you got people call your house and you go, oh, what the hell they want?
What a great guy. But we do have a lot of fun, but I mean, he has a really big heart and is a really caring guy. We've got colleges out there that won't even have an admissions office anymore. Why? Because, well, that implies when you say admission that somebody's going to be rejected and that might hurt somebody's feelings. So now they call it Office of Enrollment Management. I kid you not. They call it Office of Enrollment Management so as not to hurt somebody's feelings. The Justice Department, you don't have felons anymore. You have justice-involved individuals. So your family member wasn't raped. They just intersected with a justice-involved individual. They're not a felony rapist. They're a justice-involved individual. You didn't have a loved one murdered. No. They just had a head-on collision with a justice-involved individual. Are you kidding me? We're afraid of hurting a murderer's feelings by calling them a murderer. So we don't have felons anymore. We just have justice-involved individuals. Now, somebody's got too damn much time on their hands to sit around and make this stuff up. You can't say brainstormed anymore because that offends somebody that maybe had a head injury. Seriously? I'm waiting for somebody to come along and protect us bald people. You can't. When are they going to say we can't say you're going to snatch you bald anymore? When are we going to drop the bald eagle as being our national bird? Because I swear, it would be a great comedy routine if it wasn't so sad. We've gone too far and somebody needs to push back. We've got people that don't want to teach our kids about the fact that there was slavery at a time in our country because that's negative. Well, you know what? How are you ever going to learn from your mistakes if you don't acknowledge having made them? Well, who's thinking for these people? That's why I said what I said about Israel and Hamas. Look, I'm not a politician. I don't understand geopolitical things, but I know when people invade a country and murder infants in their crib, that's wrong. They say, well, what about all the children that get killed in the Gaza Strip? All the Palestinian babies? That's horrible too. Of course it is. That's horrible. And they say we need to have a ceasefire. You mean like the one we had October 6th? We had one October 6th before the invasion of these non-combatants. I saw a sign that said, gays for Palestine. Well, I'd like to see them march into Gaza with that banner and see what happens. They'd throw them off the top of a building. We're not teaching critical thinking. We've got to get back to common sense. So we've got issues. How you can stand strong for America's soul and sanity is kind of a blueprint for what we're embracing and working on at Merritt Street Media. All of these shows, everybody involved here, Steve Harvey, Nancy Grace, Chris Harrison, Mike Rowe, Bear Grylls, Robin, all of these people want to get back to core values that everyone can embrace. And that's what this is about. I want people to tune in. I want you to tell everybody that there's this new Dr. Phil's Merritt Street Media and Dr. Phil's book, We've Got Issues. I tell you what's going to happen when you read that book. You're going to say, yeah, I agree with probably a lot of what I say in that book. You just didn't have the facts to push back with if somebody was trying to peddle you a bunch of hooey that you knew wasn't right. You know, for example, people know that kids shouldn't spend so much time on social media. They don't know how right they are. They don't know that those algorithms are actually designed to target young people. And when I say target, I mean they know what they're doing makes them anxious, depressed, and lonely. And they could change that, but they don't, because if you're emotionally upset, you click more. And they could show them a box of puppies, and they'd think, well, that's really cute, but it's only cute for a little while, and then they quit clicking. But if they can show them something that upsets them, they click harder and longer and more frequent. And that means money. And I prove that in this book, and I challenge anyone, invite anyone to fact check anything in that book, because I did. Before I wrote it down, I fact checked it top, side, and bottom so people would know the facts so they can use those facts, whether it's talking to the school board or talking to their children or talking to their neighbors. This is a book that is designed to unify, not divide. But we have to unify among ourselves first. The 70-80% of middle America needs to come together and know why. And this book is a rallying point for that 70% that has kind of had a live and let live attitude. This is what they need to say, this is what we're rallying around. These are the values. These are the core values and beliefs that we're rallying around. And this is the science, this is the empirical data that supports those beliefs. And that's what it's all about. Now, here's my question for you, LaFern. Is there anything I haven't talked about Merritt Street Media or about We've Got Issues that you think people need to hear about?
You covered it all. I mean, it's like you wrote it. It's great. I think everything that you have is for the people, and that's one thing that we talked about before is how you are able to put these topics in a way that people understand it and can take the facts and learn and grow. And that's what you're about.
Now, if you're wondering where all this is taking place, we're right in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. That puts us in the middle of the country, which means we're easy to get to. So if you want to come be in the audience, If you're in Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, we'd love to have you in the audience. If you fly in to make a day of it and want to be in the audience, you fly into DFW, come out of the North Gate and hang a left. We're like 10 or 12 minutes from the North Gate of Dallas, Fort Worth Airport. So, I mean, we are so easy to get to. You come out and take a left on 114 and we're right there. It's just a matter of minutes. And we've put together a really cool experience when you come to be there. And when you go to Merritt Street Media, you just click on Be in the Audience and we take care of you like you won't believe.
And the studio is so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's nothing I've ever seen before. It's great.
Yeah. It really is state of the art, isn't it?
It's state of the art.
It's really good.